Hey, welcome everyone to a QRx Partners webinar. And I might be a little bit of an odd choice to MC a QRx webinar. My name is Jason Voiovich. I am the principal for Voiovich and Sigma, a marketing consulting firm based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And what's interesting today about why I'm here and why I'm interviewing and helping to kind of extract some wisdom from QRx Partners is an interesting FDA warning letter to young living essential oils. And what caught me about this when I saw that Jackie Torfin at QRx had shared this on LinkedIn, and because we're connected and we used to work together, I saw it in my LinkedIn feed. And what happened was, what was interesting about it is that particular warning letter was a standard sort of warning letter to one of those supplement homeopathic type organizations. But more than just that, it began to start to name other sales consultants and people in their orbit. And that starts to cross into my territory as I speak with firms about influencer marketing and the growth in influencer marketing over time. We'll get into all of those details. But first, Jackie, I think it bears a little bit of explanation here on exactly what the situation is. What was the subject of the FDA warning letter? Give us the 60-second on what this was.
So this warning letter was sent directly to Young Living Essentials Oil Corporate, their CEO and co-founder, and it is regarding, very interesting, they specifically called out several products that they consider are being marketed as drugs. And in fact, the warning letter was not just to say, hey, stop marketing it. It was to say, hey, if you're marketing drugs, then we're going to tell you that they're not approved. And we're giving you a warning letter for selling unapproved drugs. The other really interesting part of that is multiple times they mentioned Instagram and Instagram accounts from individual consultants.
I think that's a really interesting angle, Jackie, on the evidence. What really struck me about that is the claims made on Instagram and in social media that the FDA specifically called out to make its case that this was actually being marketed as a pharmaceutical drug, not as a kind of a homeopathic supplement.
Right. And I think when I saw this warning letter at first, I thought, wow, this is crazy. And then my partner, Steve, did a deeper dive. And I think he has some additional information and insights into his deeper dive, which I thought were really interesting.
Yeah, so this one is fascinating just on a lot of different levels. I think particularly because of, FDA sort of expanding its view, or maybe helping the manufacturer expand its view in saying, hey, look, these people, these aren't just your average influencers who are saying, oh, I happen to use this product and I really like it and I've used it for this. These are people who are reselling it. And this is their method of, showing why people should buy it. And they're making these just wild claims that are clearly, for treatment of medical conditions. And the product has none of that, established about it. And I don't think we've seen that before from FDA. And I suspect a lot of companies like this think, well, they're consultants. They're not really ours, right? Isn't it nice? But, there is a program that they encourage this. And I think it's FDA going, yeah, no, just because they're contractors to you essentially, or affiliates, they're yours, right? And you're now responsible for what they do. As I dug deeper into this, I happened to come across something. One, this isn't the first time they've been warned. They were warned previously in 2014 for something very similar. And I happened to trip across that internally they have an FAQ established for these affiliates, these influencers, consultants, whatever you want to call them, which is called Sharing Young Living the Right Way. And it's all about that 2014 interaction with FDA and what they're supposed to say and not say. It's interesting because it's actually really well done. I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. They're probably going to like dance around the issues and try to find the loopholes. And actually, I was impressed. It's very well written. It's just, no, FDA talked to us about this. You cannot say, and then they gave examples, right? And I was like, okay, so then why are we doing this again? Right?
Yeah, and not only
2022.
was it very well written and it covered, you know, what you can't say, it also went into like very big, very large amount of detail on where you could say it or not say it. Like, can I go to Canada and say these things? It actually had very strict guidelines in there, knowing that social media is really quite international, right? It's not just your neighbor. It can reach a lot of different places. So I
And
thought
then
that
I later discovered they did a version for the EU and another one for Australia. So they're, they clearly recognize where they would be regulated if they make these claims, and put all this great information together. But in the end, obviously it didn't have any effect. One, on all these affiliates who went on and did it anyway, and then two, in the most current warning letter, the company itself is still doing, right, putting those claims out there. So the message is not getting through internally either.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand just how big of a deal influencer marketing is in kind of the marketing ecosystem today. We used to think about that as celebrity marketing. We might get Michael Jordan to sponsor Hanes t-shirts or things like that. Well, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, if you had a celebrity marketing your product, well, they were going and they were doing broadcast TV commercials. They might appear in a print ad, but they didn't have a direct social media presence that was unfiltered between you and the public. So if Michael Jordan said something funny that wasn't quite right about Hanes t-shirts, somewhere in the editing process, that would have been caught, scrubbed, and changed. His remarks would have been scripted. He would have been in a commercial or in a print ad. So there wasn't as much flexibility. Now, Michael Jordan could have done something unsavory and Hanes t-shirts might not have liked him, but they could let him go and hire a different spokesperson if they wanted to. What makes this really different is influencer marketing is about a $16 billion chunk of the US advertising market today. And what's funny is we think about, well, influencers, we think about, well, Michael Jordan, we think about a Kanye West or a Kim Kardashian, or what we would call these kind of mega celebrities. But in reality, the influencer market today is 90% micro-influencer. A micro-influencer is someone who may have between 5,000 and 10,000 followers on Instagram primarily, but also Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. And because what marketers like about them is because they have such a smaller following, it tends to be a lot more focused on a particular group of people. So if I really wanted to reach out to a very niche audience, I might find an influencer that only has 5,000 or 10,000 followers, because I can be much more sure that my message is going to get right to them, that influencer is going to take me as an advertiser a lot more seriously. And those people on the other end of that have a closer relationship with that person. They're likely to take more action based on that. Marketers like me have found micro-influencers much more effective and cost-effective than going to the big guns. The issue, though, of course, is when you think about a micro-influencer, some of you listening to this might have 5,000 followers and might qualify as a person like this. Do you consider that you have the skills necessary to be able to evaluate FDA claims? You may have read kind of the Federal Trade Commission, the blogger rules, where if someone gives you a product, you have to disclose that you've done that. You might have a little bit of information about that. But getting into the crossing over into pharmaceutical or medical device territory puts you in the FDA's bucket as well. Even though the FTC says some things about the FDA in it, they just don't have the same enforcement powers. And this is something where, Mark, I know that this is your area of expertise in starting to really understand the differences and what the FDA can do that the FTC cannot.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. The key pieces here are that the FDA is very concerned in an area that they'll call labeling, and how you market the product, what claims you make for that product. Where the Federal Trade Commission will talk about how you're communicating the information about that product, and they can do some things, tell you to not do that, might have you do some corrective communication. The FDA has a much bigger stick available to them, and this warning letter that we're talking about really is step one. It's kind of fix this or we're going to come after you, and that, as we've talked about, that goes down to the sales consultants. They have to understand they need to fix this or the FDA is going to come. Now, the FDA has powers to actually seize product, to force you to stop selling the product. They can actually go back to the corporate company and force them to not release any new product. So they have very wide-ranging enforcement abilities that the FTC might not have available to them. So understand that this needs to be taken seriously, and those sales consultants and those people have some liability in this, because they could face potential jail time even, as they market product that has with claims that aren't cleared by the FDA.
I think it's something that, just using the J word, has a what I would call what they say in the business, a chilling effect on people's mental health. And what I would say is, as an influencer thinking about a product that might be drift into FDA territory, either as a device or as a pharmaceutical, anything that kind of crosses into their territory. Mark, one thing I was going to ask you about, when you talk about liability, what is the FDA looking for in terms of, hey, are you someone just saying that, hey, I use this product and I like it, versus kind of agent of the company? What is that? We were talking off camera about this the other day, about what that distinction is. Can you explain that just a little bit on what the FDA is looking for in that connection?
Yeah, and some of the pieces here are, you're not just a person that's talking about the product, right? You're actually a sales consultant. You actually have some economic interest in here. You might be distributing the product. Somebody could click on a link on your blog, on your Instagram, and buy the product. And you often have links to additional information about the product and those direct claims, what in the industry we call the indications for use. And if you make those things that aren't actually cleared, haven't actually been looked at by the FDA, they're going to say, no, you can't do that. Now, again, I would say this is the opportunity to kind of correct some of that behavior. FDA doesn't come with the stick right away. They're going to give you some chances to correct your behavior. And that's what Steve talked about with the previous warning letter. They've had this issue before. Now, I'll say that this is the second time that they're kind of going through this. FDA often gets in this position where they want to make examples of this. And that's the very caution thing that I have to say is, while they're giving you some time to fix your behavior and understand what you can and can't say, if you don't do that, they are going to make some examples here.
I think that's many government agencies do, have similar tactics like that. Every March or so, every February or March, there's the IRS kind of makes a big stink out of kind of going after someone, try to dissuade certain behavior that they don't want, because they don't have the resources to go after everybody. But just exposing yourself to that kind of liability is one thing. When you're a company or a corporation, you have resources. It's very different when you, as an influencer, you do this on the side, you make a little money, but you still have a day job. You have, a mortgage to pay. This isn't your full-time job. Steve, I wanted to ask you, obviously the warning letter, the 2014 warning letter, and the action taken by the company was a great first start. Let's kind of summarize those key things that that the company should be doing. And as an influencer, you should be looking for that kind of guidance. What guidance should the influencer be looking for?
Yeah. Well, let's start with the company and what may have gone wrong here. When we're evaluating, client companies and doing audits, things like that of our own, we look at 3 levels of commitment, basically, right? There's demonstrating intent, there's implementation, and then effectiveness. The FAQs that they created were clearly them saying, yes, we heard you, and therefore we intend to, meet the requirements, and we can demonstrate that we understand them. Great. I think what we're seeing is evidence of the implementation and the effectiveness checks are simply not there, right? Because it happened both internally and externally, where I'm sure this is very passive. They created this FAQ, made it available somewhere on the website. I actually went through the website and I couldn't quite see like where they're telling people how they can become affiliates. I didn't see a reference to any of this stuff. So I don't know how it gets delivered. It may just be somewhere, even on their learning center page, it wasn't there. So they're failing on the implementation, right? How do we get this out to people so that they can actually apply it? And then the effect of this is then how are they keeping up on it to ensure that it's being listened to, right? So they're showing great intent, they're not showing any control over the situation. As an affiliate, if I'm considering wanting to get, into this, the challenge is you don't know what you don't know, right? And the layperson's not going to understand, these essential oils and things like that. If we say the wrong thing, could become drugs. So I don't know that they'd even know how to ask the company, hey, are you going to give me any guidance on staying, away from these, regulatory issues, when they don't even realize regulatory is an issue. I think it all falls on the manufacturer. I think FDA is, fired shots across 2 bows here. They've made it really clear to the manufacturer, you need to do something about this. And then they've sort of sent that warning shot out there to create that chilling effect that you talked about, going, you guys need to start thinking about this before you get too enamored by the extra bucks you can make as an influencer, right? Or a reseller of these products, in whatever scheme they have together to, funnel you money, for selling their products.
Yeah, Steve, the thing that I would add is that, I would agree that the manufacturer must provide that. They're responsible ultimately for providing that guidance and staying on the right side of this. And as an individual influencer, it could be very difficult to know. And if you're going to be an influencer for a homeopathic, supplement, it behooves you to understand. I would consider, if you're going to earn money on it, you probably should understand it. However,
you should, but think of the average layperson. I looked at some of these sites. I just Googled some not even Young Living stuff, but just essential oil and thieves oil and things like that. And Jackie said, yeah, you're going to see a gazillion sites. And surely, there are all these sites of all different sizes. And I just go, I look at some of them, I go, yeah, this is some, somebody working from home or taking care of their kids at home and thought, oh, look, a good little side business. And they don't really have the background in business. They talk about what they did before that. And I go, how would they even know to think about business risk, right? We put a business together, we put together a business plan, we hire a lawyer, we bring in mentors. I don't think, the average homemaker is thinking about all those things when they go, oh, look, I could make a couple $100 extra bucks a month. It's a real challenge. And I don't think FDA is offering a solution. They're just going, somebody's got to do something about this, so we're going to come down on you.
Yeah, not really the FDA's job.
I'm sorry, Jason, if I can just chime in too. Some people might ask, why now? Why is the FDA concerned about this now? I think it is that homeopathic thing that a lot of people have been, buying things from home, working through COVID. And FDA is saying, look, we got to pull the reins back on some of these people, because they could have just been people that were buying the product and they liked the product and they may, say, this is what it did for me. Again, if those claims aren't backed up by the information, you can't make them, whether or not it helped you or not. You have to say, hey, that hasn't been proven.
And if I could just point out 2 really interesting things as to why now. I do think that COVID has somewhat of an impact on this because there has been a lot more activity in the wellness space and how you're going to stay well, right? And some of these things in this warning letter specifically talk about that. When you read the warning letter, I'm sure everyone will go out and read it now because it is super interesting. You will see that they have cited social media posts on some of these accounts back to 2018. And so they went pretty far back and showed consistency in the in each of those accounts, consistency in the posting. So they didn't go to an account and say, oh, boom, you said this helps a cold. You said that over and over and over again. The other thing that I found that was very interesting, which I think will end up kind of taking an offshoot of its own, is they were very specific around some of the claims around the ultra CBD product. And we all know that CBD is in kind of a weird space. It's not federally approved, but a lot of states are allowing it. This is the first kind of perspective that I've seen from the federal government around CBD being marketed specifically as a drug. So I thought that was also interesting. Again, through the MLM type system and the micro influencers. So
I think these are all key things. And we've heard a lot of, kind of critical things about how, when you take a look at the FDA's point of view on this, just as an outsider, a non-expert on FDA, that FDA isn't just finding, as you said, Jackie, they're just not cherry picking one post that had awkward wording. This is demonstrating a pattern of behavior over a long period of time. One thing that's interesting about the influencer marketing business today is that it used to be maybe 5-6 years ago that micro-influencers would have a direct relationship with Young Living essential oils. And sometimes that's still the case. But very often, much like Amazon hires a intermediary company that then hires the drivers, multi-level marketing and as well as influencer marketing is often handled by third parties who contract with the manufacturer, and then they do the reach out and the management of the micro influencers. They manage how often they're posting, what they say, and kind of do the auditing and reporting. So, Steve, to your point, there is another party in here that is now, kind of the person at home with the dogs and the kids might not have the knowledge for that, but the intermediary certainly should. And it's really that particular intermediary that I suspect, if we were to see additional warning letters like this in the future, that those firms might start to get roped in. As a micro-influencer, though, I would recommend that because I'm not an attorney, I don't even play one on TV. You need to get adequate representation. Most people think that that's too expensive. It often can be, but look into a service such as Legal Shield or similar ones that will give you access to lawyers for a small subscription fee of $20, $30 a month. If you're running a business, it probably makes sense to have a service like that where you can ask qualified people for actual legal advice. But as far as kind of understanding the FDA and these kind of quality rules and kind of the evolution of this, Jackie, where do people find, if people want to know a little bit more about QRx Partners and what you do and what advice you can offer, tell us a little bit more about what QRx does and where they can learn more.
Yeah, well, thanks. So QRx Partners is the three of us. Steve, Mark, and I formed QRx Partners. We all have lots of years of experience in the pharmaceutical and device regulatory and quality space. And so we have a consulting company where we help primarily startup and small companies, also some medium-sized companies, but we really focus on kind of those smaller companies that need extra support and some expertise through these kinds of situations. We do a lot of remediation, a lot of proactive system work for people as well. And the easiest way to find us is to just go to QRxPartners.com and click on the link there, and it'll take you right to one of our faces. You can email us directly or email contact@QRxPartners.com. We also have on our website, put in a free question and we will answer you. So you don't even have to tell us who you are, just, you know, your email address. And if you have some confidential questions you want to ask, we're happy to get the conversation started and to point you into the right direction.
It's a fantastic resource. I think that really lowers that kind of that nervous bar that someone might have for like, boy, I read this, I listened to this webinar, and I'm for Old Living Essential Oils, totally different company. And I said this thing on Instagram. Oh boy, am I in trouble? What should I say differently? Just something like that just really is helpful, and just helps give people that little bit more peace of mind that no, people with the FDA aren't coming knocking down your door with guns, but hey, you do have to be on the right side of this thing. So thank you, Mark, Steve, Jackie, for kind of sharing your expertise and wisdom on this. I think that, there are a lot of small organizations that you work with that will definitely see value in this as they explore influencer marketing strategies. But all those folks in my orbit who are influencer marketing firms and who are micro-influencers themselves, this is an area of the business that you may not have been paying much attention to, but you may want to, and you may want to get in touch with QRx Partners, at least for a little bit of an initial phone call to get yourself, at least get yourself grounded on the right questions to ask. So Jackie, Mark, Steve, thank you. And I invite people to go and check out QRxPartners.com and learn a little bit more.
Thanks so much,
Jason.
Jason.
Thank you.